So, I'm here with Julie Ohanneson, and it's June 29th, 2002, and we're here to talk about student engagement. So, Julie, can you tell me a little bit about your educational background?
My educational background? I have been teaching in the Panama Buena Vista District this will be my 24th year, I think. 24th, yeah.
Congratulations.
Hey, I'm old. Started out in first grade, got bumped to fifth, taught fifth for 5 years, went back to first and taught several second grade combos, about 5 of them, and then stuck in first for about, I don't even know, 7, 8 more years. Went back to fourth, taught a fourth, fifth combo, and now I'm in third. So I bounced all around and then landed in third.
A lot of the grades, just maybe not the higher grades.
Right. I never taught sixth, but I taught a kindergarten, first grade combo when I was doing my training, but no kinder.
Okay.
Not by just first.
Cool. And then just to get kind of your experience, when was the first time you felt engaged as a student? So like way back when you were going to school.
I felt engaged. I'm trying to think which teacher. Probably, I really enjoyed fourth grade. Started doing like the the California stuff, the history. It's kind of when I got started with loving the history stuff. My dad was a teacher also at the high school district. And my dad would take us cross country every summer on these long trips where we'd go to all the historic places. So about fourth and fifth grade when I actually I started seeing the things that I was learning about school, and I'd been to those states and had teachers that did art projects and reports, loved doing reports.
Really?
Yes, loved doing state reports, Indian reports, country reports, loved anything history. So anytime I got to present or do any research, even before the internet, I would just go to the library and get every book I could on it and do these huge reports and get started right away. You know?
So what about the reports was so engaging, do you think?
The history. I just loved learning about stuff, and if I could touch things that were historic, that was always a real problem I had. Okay. So I used to get in trouble. We would go to museums. Like I would touch like Annie Oakley's saddle, and it would set off an alarm. But I'm like, I touched it.
Oh my gosh, really?
I was really bad about that.
Oh, that's so funny.
Elvis's piano. I would cross lines to stand where something happened, I always do. So that was always a big deal for me. Collecting things from places, historical, anything historical. And I just love having tangible items and doing that. And I bring that into my teaching too. I have like just hordes of all kinds of stuff that I bring in.
Where kids can touch and experience it.
And show them. And
Okay.
So I'm very much like that as a teacher. I like to pass around. Like we did rocks, and so we did the whole, I bring in every rock I can. I always have Ziplocs with me in case I need to grab, if there's something that I can take or find. Really bad about that. Just have weird artifacts. I actually have a branch in my bedroom that's from Laura Ingalls Wilder's home from her orchard.
Oh, that's so cool.
I'm like, they planted this. That's so cool. Major history dork.
So it sounds like your teachers were able to tap into that historical passion that you have.
Yes. A lot of my teachers kept my reports because they were so I would find pictures. I would go to and find National Geographics that had topics on it that I could buy and cut up and put in my reports.
Right.
Yeah, all before computers. So I'd always have pictures, or I'd have actual photos from our trip of something. Like my dad took us to Vicksburg, and so I did a whole report in high school about Vicksburg and had pictures of everything I was talking about. So yeah, it's always been real tangible. Been there, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Okay. And then, okay. And then, tell me about a time when you made a great choice with student engagement. Like, it could be a lesson or an activity you did with your kids, or something that you felt like was really successful, or you felt it was a great experience for the kids.
I have had a lot of fun with, this is the most recent one. I mean, there's tons that I go to, but with science, with rocks, I just laugh about rocks, trying to bring them, even at third grade. We did it at the end because it was fun, but just doing the, you can do science and art and history with the rocks. And then I always go up to Oregon, and there's always a guy on the port that's selling rocks, and he had dinosaur bones, and he goes all these places and gets stuff.
Whoa.
So then I even have a chip off a dinosaur bone. I have all this crazy stuff, but I think because I get so passionate about it, the kids get all into the rocks. And so I have kids that, and every class I've ever done this with. And so they're all out at the playground digging up rocks, and they're coming back from recess with just like loads of rocks.
Oh my
and
God.
so I lay out all my books, and they get to figure out what rock they found. And look, I found granite. And because at Highgate, because of all the construction, there was tons of granite. So tons of granite specimens coming back in from recess. But even when I did it at summer school with the kids that were going into second grade, we just did rocks, and they just went crazy over it. They were digging holes and trying to find rocks, and then we turned it into the rock stacking. We did like a fun activity with that, and they just go crazy with the rock stacking. And then I show them like the videos of the guy in Colorado that just does it everywhere. And so I did that over Zoom with my kids, and parents were sending me all the photos of the kids out in the yard doing like all their rocks that were stacked up. And so stuff so like cute. The science stuff is just really funny. And then we did a sand castle. So I went to the beach and got sand and put glitter in it just to make it fun. And we made sand castles. So it was just so many extensions from just rocks. And it's fun. And then like when I travel, so when I went to Hawaii, I got sand from the black sand beach because I always have my Ziplocs with me. I had the green sand beach and the white sand beach. So I purposely traveled to all these places to get all these different rocks so I could show them. And so I think because I get so excited about them getting excited about it, they love it. I was just reading my kids' letters to the third graders coming in, and that was the one thing they were like, oh, you're going to love rocks. And it's funny because when you start, they're like, huh? And then they're like so excited because then it's just everywhere they go. That's just rocks. The whole time we're learning about it, just tons of rocks. And I still have a student from 5th grade when I was at Sandrini. She's probably in high school now. But she got so into it. I would still bring her rocks. Like when I would find a weird one, I'd pick one up for her. And she would come and see me to see if I'd had any. But that's what she's chosen as a career. So I felt like, oh, that's funny. She just loves studying rocks.
Geologist?
Yeah, she wants to do, if not that. She's like, I'm going to try for that. But she's like,
how old is she?
I had her in 5th grade, probably 10 years ago.
Oh, wow.
So she's probably, well, not 10, probably less than that. About 8 years ago, because I had her brother on Zoom. So, but she was on Zoom with me because I had her little brother, and she's like, can I show you the rocks I have? But her mom was like, oh my gosh, we have rocks everywhere. But that's just her thing, and she's like.
So what about that rock activity do you think was so engaging for your students?
I think once we learn about how they're made and where they come from and the 3 different types and how they've always been here and how there's a cycle, and I think when you start bringing out the different rocks from the different cycles, where they are not cycles, from the different types of rocks, and they start seeing the difference, they're like, oh, we have these countertops, or oh, we have, I think they relate to it, and then they start seeing them everywhere. And that's my big thing. You walk by these things all the time and pay them no attention.
Why do you think relating content to real things that they see in their real life, why do you think that's so engaging for kids?
Because that's how I am. That's how I got hooked on everything with history and stuff.
So what about that is so engaging?
I don't know. I think I'm very observant, so I think once I learn about something, I love telling everybody else. And so I do get a lot of feedback from parents like, oh my gosh, we had to hear about this for all day, oh my gosh, we know all about this now. But I think I was like that. I think because I do talk a lot, but I love sharing like how something's made or formed, or I drive my family crazy. Like, just, oh, do you guys know how that, you know how that volcano, you know what kind of volcano that is? Yes, Mrs. O. They call me Mrs. O. But I think just because I was that way, and when I go out to recess, I point out, and I haven't had a class yet that hasn't been hooked by, I think the rocks are so funny.
How do you think, and that's something that you've had since you were a girl, how do you think that was cultivated in you? Like, was there something that encouraged that when you were young?
I was a big reader, and I loved learning things, and then I was always intrigued by like really smart people. I loved reading about like what they did. Like, I always I was kind of steered towards historical fiction just naturally. So I would read fiction books, but I loved history books.
Yeah.
And I was really big with, like, on the trips my dad took me on, going through like Civil War battlefields and just thinking about all the stuff that's probably out there that nobody's found.
Right.
Very intrigued by finding things, and love the treasure hunter shows. Stuff like that. So my dad was a PE. He was a math, science guy.
Okay.
I was not math, not science, really until I became a teacher, when I really started to love science. But history was just always my thing.
Yeah.
Like, thinking about where something came from. Antique stores. Like, I wonder who owned this. I wonder who's touched this. I wonder who,
You have a lot of curiosity.
Yeah. And imagination, I think, has to play a part in it.
Right. And you think you've always been naturally curious, or is that something that you've learned?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I like knowing things. I like being able, and I tell everybody about stuff. So I'm very big. So when I teach it, and I love, it's something that I love. You can tell. I have worked with teachers before, and we were trying to decide on what to do, and I was like, oh, we should do the rocks, and my teacher's like, boring. And I'm like, oh no. I was like, no. They love it. I promise. They love it. And she didn't do it. And I'm like, I'm going to do it. And I said, you have to love it. You have to be excited by it.
It seems like that's
the kids feed off of it. Yeah.
Like, you have to bring your passion into...
Right. And I see that that's something they have to experience. Teachers have to experience that.
Right.
Because if you don't like what you're teaching, they're not going to like it. If you find it boring, they'll find it boring. I think it comes across in your teaching. Because history and science,
those are kind of your two.
Yeah.
That's what you really gravitate
I do a whole
towards.
thing on trees too, and I got the kids like just so into trees. Like, one year, this is like crazy, and they were bringing me leaves and trees, and I was like, I've got all kinds of stuff.
That's so great.
But yeah, I like to show them, like, we were doing bark or different types of tree trunks. So I would bring redwood bark and show them how light it was, and how, see the difference, feel the difference in the bark. And oh, wow, can we feel that again? And they're always like, can we hold it? Of course, it's just stuff, yes, my cabinet is full of bizarre things. But
that's great.
I know.
Okay, so what is your biggest challenge or frustration with student engagement?
Nowadays, it's the lack of imagination I'm finding in a lot of students. And I don't want to say they're not as motivated as they used to be.
Why do you think that is?
I don't know. I look back at what I used to have my 5th graders and 4th graders do before computers, when they had to write and research things like in encyclopedias and how to look up stuff and do this stuff. And I don't know. And it just seems like they're like, do we have to write like a full sentence? Do we have to, like, can we just write 3? Like, there's no, I don't want to say lazy. It's just,
they can do the work.
Like, they're just they can. And I do think the topics make a difference.
Do you feel like, why do you think students might be unmotivated with the topics that are being taught?
Well, like, this is terrible. Can I talk about a district?
Yeah.
Okay.
This is off the record.
Okay, in third grade, they like killed us with this beetle topic for our IABs over and over. And it's like the beetle again. It's the beetle again. And so when I changed it to
Did they use like
octopus,
the same text or?
Yes.
Okay, they did that in 5th.
It was terrible.
Whales.
It was terrible. And
like with your narrative and.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then they were confusing. The topics were confusing. Like they would give them something, and then it got to where we were spending more time trying to figure out, can we do this? Can we do that? Can we do this? And I mean, the beetle wasn't really exciting in the first place, so it was kind of, oh, it's the beetle again. You know, like okay. I just had trouble with that. The topics.
So it seems like hitting the same topic, like beating a dead horse,
yes.
That's unmotivating.
Yes, and then a lot of them wouldn't even read the 2 sources again because they were so over reading the sources.
Right.
And I don't know. I just.
What else?
I don't know if people are picking it that.
Right.
They're just grabbing what examples are out there and they're not actually in the classroom. Like, I don't know.
Can you think of any other times when you've noticed that your students are unmotivated to learn the content?
When depends on how you do it. I mean, you can get anybody to learn. If you know your students and you know the route. Like I said, if I act like excited about it or like this is so cool, I can't believe you guys get to do this. Then you kind of get them, you know. I find that students nowadays don't like videos, which I think is odd. I find that my students would not watch a video on something like Bill Nye or something. Like we love Bill Nye. We would hear that, you know.
Why do you think that is?
I don't know. I don't know what's going on that they're more distracted by other things. I don't know. I don't know if they're just not as. I don't know if other people have.
Because video is their world.
Yeah.
Like they're on
but
TikTok
they don't like to watch
all of this and YouTube.
Yeah, it was interesting. And every group's a little different, but like my group last year did not like videos. They wouldn't stay focused on it.
What do you think? What do you think is like the main cause of unmotivation with students?
Honestly, I think a lot of them are up too late on phones, and that's what I think is one thing. Because when I do talk to parents, he's like, "Oh, he had his phone when he went to bed," or "Oh, you know," and I'm thinking, I don't think they get rest like they used to, and it probably because they don't go outside and play like they used to. Because I grew up out in the country, and I mean, I lived on a street, but it was one street out in the middle of the country. And we played outside all day. I mean, we were exhausted by dinner time. So I don't know if that's not going on. I don't know if they just sit or... And you got the kids that are being, you know, and I was this parent too, dragging your kids to sports. I don't know. And then they come home and want their video game time. And so, maybe they're tired.
Yeah. I mean, you have to have energy to be motivated.
Right. I had a lot of kids that fell asleep in class, fell asleep on Zoom.
Now, the ones that were motivated, they were probably rested and maybe not thinking about video games.
Right.
But is that all it takes to motivate kids, you think? Or is there something else?
Some.
Okay, for
some of them. Oh, yeah. Yeah. No, I had a lot of kids that were eager to learn. Last year, more than I've had in a long time.
Why do you think they were so eager to learn?
They were the type of kids that wanted to learn everything about everything. I had one girl that would find a topic on something, which was unusual. It was really funny. So she would find a book or something, and she would copy it on paper and turn it into me all the time. She's like, I'm practicing my handwriting, but I'm also learning about it too. And so she just did that on her own.
Okay.
So she would copy a book about, she did one on Harriet Tubman.
Okay.
And so she was
copying the book?
Copying the book, practicing her handwriting. And learning about her. But then she also asked me about, because the kids know Harriet Tubman is one of my favorites. I said, read about her. I'd tell that. So I'd get as many Harriet Tubman books as I could. and we would talk about the quilts and the Underground Railroad, because I actually have a quilt from Mississippi that my grandma had found in a yard sale that has a lot of the quilt patterns on it.
Really?
The different quilt patterns that they use, and I have a book that teaches that. And so I always bring that out just to show them. And they're like, you got to read about Harriet Tubman. And so several of my girls, it was mostly girls, were like, well, what books do you have? What books do you have? So I had the eager learners that wanted to learn everything, So similar to how I was. Like I was that kind of.
Right.
My teacher told me to read it. I would read it.
And with those unmotivated learners, were there any strategies that you tried that kind of brought them about to be motivated?
Yeah, animals. If you can get books on animals, I could rope in a lot of my lower kids, and even my ED kids that didn't really do the work.
Yeah.
But they would stop whatever they were doing that was distracting to everybody in the room. But they would stop and chime in because they were smart, and they would chime in and they're like, well, this one and this one, and so I'm like, well, come over here and tell us about it. Come tell us about it. And so usually if you can hit something that they're interested in and pull away from, like, it doesn't necessarily have to be this, but that takes extra diving and extra, I do at the beginning of the year hand out a survey, what are your interests, what do you like? So I know animals pop up on like most of theirs. Yep. So anything to do with an animal, but on Zoom when I was with my second graders, I did a lot of my ELA stuff was geared with animals, because I had them all hooked when I was talking about animals, or because I had a lot of animal experts in there, so they were always chiming in, or you guys research this, and tomorrow we're going to talk about,
So finding topics that they're interested in, and then you can bring in the standards to kind of...
Right.
Okay.
Right, using it in small reading groups.
Okay.
Yeah, I had my one kid. He wouldn't write or read or do any of the work, but he would definitely come over to the conversation.
Yeah.
Which, I got what I could take,
Yeah.
Take whatever I could get from him. But definitely. But it does take more work.
It does.
You may be teaching something, and some teachers teach it because it's what they've been given, and that's what they gave me. That's what I'm teaching. I don't care if they respond or like it at all.
Right.
And I can't stand that. So I always have to.
Why does that bother you so much?
Because especially with the fourth grade, when I taught fourth grade, some of the stories were so bad and odd. And the kids would ask me questions, and I'm like, I don't know. Like weird. And so as the teacher, I can still tackle that standard and be successful with it if I do my research and get my own stuff. Like that's better. It's the same thing, but it's better.
You don't need that story to meet the standards. You can choose another story or another informational text that's more interesting.
Definitely. And then we started, this was from Tyson too. He had a lot of really high kids doing that genius hour thing. So I had the independent kids that were higher. And once you get them roped and they know how to do it, then the other kids were like, I want to do that. And then they actually teach them. So that was really fun. Ooh. So they get to pick the topic. And so actually my one girl picked Harriet Tubman. So they do a whole slideshow. They do a whole, they do the research. They have to write a whole thing on it. Why did you pick it? What's important? And then the other kids all wanted to do it,
What do you think's so engaging about Genius Hour?
They get to pick what they want.
Yes.
Something they're interested in. They have to teach it to the rest of us.
And they like that.
Which was funny because there were a couple kids that had things that I had no idea what they were talking about. I'd never heard of. But, and they love it. They love getting up and being the teacher. I didn't have anybody that was like, shy or didn't want to do it. They were all kind of...
Why do you think...
It's kind of funny, opened up.
Why do you think teaching kids is so engaging for them? Why do you think they're so interested in that? I think if you create that safe environment that, we're all a team and, so-and-so's got the floor, let's listen. They love that. They love that. And they weren't met with laughing. They weren't met with, anybody picking on them. It was safe. They knew that we were going to listen. So
and
what
ask
about
questions. And
what about teaching their peers in a safe space? What about that is, why do you think that's so engaging?
I think for a lot of kids, I had a lot of shy kids with anxiety too. So even they were able to do that. So I think they just felt safe with their friends. It was kind of fun because I let them hit the board. You know, that was a big deal. They got to use the tech, and they got to, you know. So I think it was the tech. It was their thing, their creation.
Right.
They were proud of it. You know,
Why
it
do you
was
think
it
they were
was just
so-
so fun
Why
for
do you
them.
think they were so
It was fun.
proud of it?
Because they did the work. I think I gave them the bones, like this is what you need to do, or what needed to be in it, and it was their choice.
Yeah.
So it was fun. It was kind of like me getting to pick, you know, rocks. You know, something that.
It's like they were
Interesting.
owning their learning.
Yes. Oh yeah. Completely. And sharing it.
Yeah.
And sharing it, and then other kids that knew other stuff about it, but very respectful. It wasn't that's not true, or nobody did that.
Right.
It was very respectful, you know. But you go through that,
Yeah.
you know, and then everybody wanted to do it, and then I had my kids that were doing it showing my other kids how to make slideshows and all that stuff.
Oh, that's
and
so great.
So yeah, that was fun. It
That's
was
very
it worked
cool.
out. It was cool. And then another thing that was engaging, just made me think of it though, doing the IABs. When we did our writing, we would practice the writing IABs, and we would get them back and grade them, and then we would do because once you grade them, they're gone. So you have to actually screenshot them, move them over to a Google Doc, or move it to the slideshow so you have them on slideshow. But you don't want the kids' names on them.
Okay.
So we would put that. So we would spend time after they would do their writing, and I would give them the rubric. I'm like, okay, this is what we were supposed to do. So here's what we're looking for. And there was one on instruments and instrument families, and they just did terrible on it. It was terrible. It was so funny. And so I read to them, like, here's the exemplar. Look at this exemplar. This is what they were looking for. You see how they mentioned that this story was about instrument families, and how there's wood, you know, there's wind, there's, you know, brass, and so once I showed them that, then I would put up theirs. But I didn't put names on it. I said, let's grade these. Let's see these. And what would you give these? I want you guys to see. And so they loved that. Like,
Why do you think they
it
love
was
that
so
much?
funny. I don't know, but I know they learn the most from it. Because I can bring it up. I said, remember we did that one. Did you put everything they're asking for in there this time? Like, you know, yes, you know, go back, you know, teaching them to. It's hard for them to pull off the computer.
Yeah.
And make notes. That's
Yeah.
hard, and that's hard at
It
third.
is hard.
It's hard at fourth. It's hard at fifth. It's hard to get them to do that, especially with them losing that whole year of writing and learning to do that. But I think once we did that, we were able to go, remember that one with the instruments? Are like, oh yeah. And then they would go back and do it.
So in a way,
Because they kind of saw what they were missing.
almost like they were doing peer evaluation.
Oh, completely. And then you had the one girl or the boy that was always like, that's mine.
You
That's
didn't
mine.
need to know that.
Yeah, that's mine. Oh, and they're always guessing whose it is. That was always funny.
Oh, really?
So whoever wrote the must be the high kid, and it was just interesting but it was something that they were all engaged at because they didn't know when theirs was coming up. And I didn't even do everybody's. I just did the ones like, oh no, what did this person do right away without reading it? What do you think? They're like, well, they only wrote 2 sentences, so. They only wrote 2 sentences. I'm like, exactly. So let's go back and see if those were 2 really good sentences. No.
Oh, wow.
No. I mean, it's guided, but then they get to where they're guiding it too. I mean, they're starting to do.
Right.
They're copying you. They're imitating you. You don't have to do it anymore. It's kind of funny. It's kind of like when you read to a class.
Yeah.
Especially at first grade, when you read to a class every day and then you start letting them be the reader, it's interesting because they imitate you. They start, and you're just like, you know, looking over there like,
Oh, that's so funny.
do that? Yeah, they do the whole.
So they'll imitate the good and the bad and everything.
But they were doing that with that writing. But that was something that was funny because writing's not their favorite. And it's funny, that one you do get them all engaged with it.
Why do you think peer evaluation is so engaging? Why did that grab them?
I think possibly because they get to be the teacher. That's kind of a teacher-like role for them. But they're also waiting for theirs to see if I picked theirs to be up there. I think they're...
Okay. They like to see their work.
I had several kids that really wanted to see how they did. You know, I had those that group that wanted to do well on everything. And so they wanted to see if theirs was up there. But then they also want to chime in on everybody's.
They wanted that feedback.
Right. Oh, definitely. Definitely. And feedback's hard with writing because of time. It's hard to work in feedback, and it's so important.
It's a great idea to do it full class because they're getting it multiple times. It's like,
and you can refer to it, and they remember. Remember what. And then a lot of them, you start seeing the little light bulb. They're like, oh, I didn't know what they meant. The question, I didn't know what they meant. So I got that a lot from a lot of the IAB questions. I didn't know what they were asking. I got that a lot. But this is their first stab at the cast. And so it's super important that you do tackle those questions so they kind of see what they're going to look like.
Right.
Because we did find out a lot that they didn't understand what they were being asked to do.
Uh-huh.
So that's something next year we're definitely going to dive into more is what are they asking us to do?
Right.
And having them figure it out. What do you think they're out? That being a conversation, because that was a big problem in our writing scores taped on the cast.
Yeah.
They were not good. So.
I haven't even looked.
They're up. They're up now. They're not bad.
I'm not going to look until August.
Oh, I checked every day. I'm like, I'm probably on some suicide watch list for cast. But I have PTSD from cast scores. I'm like,
And you mentioned when they're teaching, they really enjoy teaching the other kids,
mm-hmm.
like when they're guiding them through that
mm-hmm.
writing evaluation. Mm-hmm. What about kids teaching kids? Why do you think that's so engaging? Why do they like doing that?
You have some kids that are really good at it and love to do it.
Uh-huh.
Those natural teachers that are really good at it, and your helpful students that just want to help.
What makes them natural teachers?
I don't know. I know I was like that. I love to be the helper.
Uh-huh.
I don't know if it's just something because you've got the kids that don't want to help anybody. They just want to be, their own little.
Focus on their.
They don't want help.
Yeah.
They don't want to help. You have those, and then you have the ones that just pop up and help. But I think too, you can bring that out on a lot of kids when you do, just with your classroom environment. I think.
Yeah.
Or and I say I need help. Who wants to help? Or I ask him for the help. Making them feel important for helping. And then you have your kids that learn something that struggled and they're like, hey, can you help me? Tackling those kids that feel good about themselves.
It's like you're empowering them.
Yeah, that's really important to do with kids that struggle. And then they get it and you're like, oh, can you help me? They're like, can you help me now? And then they feel good like that was one of their hurdles, they got over. So it's important to catch those kids because they struggle. I was like that in math, and so I'm very visible. A lot of teachers didn't teach that way. They showed you on the board, and then you had to get it. Didn't get it, but if you showed me, I could do it.
Right.
In other ways, but I would have been a great one for that. If you could show me another way to do it. I like to have kids that, especially with math. I had a 5th grader genius kid, could do math in his head, could do like 387 times 563, go, and he'd go. And he just gets right hands.
Wow.
But he wasn't a visible, so when I would do word problems, I would draw it all out. I would draw it all out, and then I would hand him the pen. I'm like, now show us how you did it. And so I always made sure that kids saw the other way to do it. Because my way drove people crazy that just wanted it. Like, I just want the numbers.
Yeah.
I don't want your little people walking up a hill with I don't want the bus actually driving to this. Like, I have to draw the picture. I have to see it.
It seems
so catching those kids too.
different kids are engaged in different ways.
Totally. Yeah. Yeah. So I was real embracing of the having different methods of showing kids, having this kid. And I do this to every teammate I have. If kids aren't getting something, go next door to Mr. Rome. Ask him to show you. Because there's something I'm saying that it's not getting through.
Right.
And when I'm just at a loss, I think that's really important to have a team like that with go have, Caden show you how to do it. Okay, now go ask Mr. Rome. Ask him how to do it. But see, he's more math, so that works out. So yeah.
You guys complement each other.
That works
way.
out, yes, because I do the long way to China.
Yeah.
So, but that's important to do stuff like that. I don't think a lot of people utilize that.
Well, and then what is your biggest hope, dream, or desire relating to student engagement? Like, what do you hope that could be or become?
Oh gosh, it takes so much work and but that feeling, I think every teacher knows it, but even when you've trailed off, but you've had you trailed off but they've learned so much on this trail you guys have gone down together, and everybody was excited and engaged. Every lesson being like that, like where you feel like everybody had a part, everybody participated, and everybody enjoyed. And I keep going back to rocks, but that's something that they all get into, and you're just like, this is so cool. Like, I even take pictures like the whole time because they're so happy, engaged, and then they enjoy it. And not that every kid's going to enjoy your lesson or feel good or or be present, but I think when they're enjoying it and they've got it and they get excited about it. And I think you walk in every day hoping that every lesson is going to be that exciting and that great and like sometimes you get handed those topics or those things that just aren't great, and you try to do more and get it a little more exciting.
So your hope is that instead of like having boring topics or
with me just teaching and me just talking, I don't because I can do that. I just having them being such a part of it and feeling like that's okay. Like if you have something to offer,
like a community collaboration type of experience for as many lessons as possible.
And I talk a lot, so my class tends to talk a lot and be a little more, I get a little more animated, but I don't think they're afraid of talking. A lot of times you hear your kids talking, and I think all of us have done this. We're like, shh, and they're talking about the lesson. I catch them, they're talking about what you're teaching, and they're talking about what you're doing. Letting them know that talk to all of us. Tell us what you're talking about. What do you know? That's what I strive to be more like. I don't want to be those teachers that just talk at the class and you just sit there. I wasn't that type of student. I couldn't.
So why is having that collaborative learning community for all your lessons, why is that your dream?
Because I think they learn it and they remember it. If you've taught long enough to have students that come back and talk about what they remember and the things that you deem that weren't that important or not that interesting, or just kind of you learn that that's the stuff they remember and the stuff that they go home and talk to their family about. Like that one mom constantly was like, oh my gosh, we had to learn about how a potato came to America and I'm just like, oh, sorry. She's like, no, it's funny because he can tell me the whole story for a whole hour, but I know he learned it. And
so what about that community collaboration learning? What about that it makes it so memorable for students?
because it was fun.
Why?
Fun.
Why is it fun?
Because they get to be part of it, and they get it's exciting. It's stuff like we did at the end of my rock thing. I always buy them geodes when I'm in Oregon, and I bring them back. So we always talk about what a geode is. We do the virtual field trip to Carlsbad Caverns. Great. This is the first class I've had that someone's been there, so that was fun.
Cool.
So they talked about what they saw too. I didn't just tell them everything. I went on the little thing with them, but we talked about how they were formed, and we talked about this and that, and some kids were familiar with them. Some kids had no idea what I was talking about. But we always crack them open, and I always make sure they take a piece of it home so they can tell their family about it. But I always make sure, tell your mom and dad what you learned today. Make sure you tell people about this. You can tell because they're part of it.
Yeah.
And they're part of the learning. I mean, they get to the experiments. Anything we do with the experiments. Why do you think that failed? What could we have done different? It's fun, engaging,
right?
And it's the stuff they do remember, because I still talk to students.
And they'll bring it up with
way
you.
back. And I always do a pancake party. We always did the tree unit, and so I always made sure I did maple trees, and we did this whole lesson on maple trees, and then I always brought in maple syrup and regular syrup, and they got to try both, and then we did a whole which was better thing. And
the kids love it.
Oh yes, but my kids from 20 years ago still talk about the pancake party and maple syrup. Da, 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 they remember that, and it's stuff that's around you that you see, and just making them aware of the stuff that they see, why is that tree's leaves purple, and why does that tree have leaves in the fall, and why does it, I think just stuff they see all the time, and getting them to want to go places.
It's relevant to them.
It's relevant, and
they see it in real life.
I'm trying to just really tap into that and their interests, being aware of their interests. It's harder now for me because my kids are older. But
so how do you figure out? I mean, you mentioned you have that survey, but is there any other ways you figure out what their interests are?
Definitely the survey a lot. Oh, I talk a lot to them.
Okay.
I feel like I really strive, even when I was on Zoom, I strive to really be able to walk around the room and know stuff about that kid other than their name, other than,
wow, that's really cool.
Knowing that, he loves dragons, he likes to draw, he this, he that. I mean, I think that's important. So you can talk to them. I think that's why my one kid this year spent a lot of time talking with him about things that interested him, and getting to know him and telling him about me, and I think that helped a lot with stuff, because then we were able to trust each other and talk, and well, hey, I know you're upset right now, but hey, you want to look at animal videos? And I'm like, is that it? Asking him questions, and then he's like, no, that's this, and he totally forgets about, So, I mean, it's important, I think, for behaviors and relationships and that kind of stuff. Just, I know having a lot of behaviors from where I came from, just, it shows them you care, that you know about them. I have kids that are adults now that I still talk to. That still laugh about stuff I brought them or stuff that I knew, And so it's important.
So the relationships you build, and when you're talking to your kids and learning things about them, they can tell that you care.
Yeah, and just being honest with them about, I had one girl that had to start taking shots every day. And I'm like, I have to take shots now too. And then we talked about that. So then she was real comfortable talking to me about it, because she was real nervous. She was real upset about it. And I'm like, I know how you feel. I mean, just being human, I think, to them, and not this authoritative figure in their life that's no fun and just on them all the time, which bothers teachers that are real strict. I know I bother teachers that are very strict, because I'm very playful with my class, and I try to. I'm not regimented on it's in stone. This is what we're doing. We have to, I'm flexible when I need to be. Like if your class is having a bad day, you know, you have a lot of, or something's happened in the news and you can tell it's like something.
Right.
I think it's important to be able to have those skills in your back pocket to shift to things that make them laugh, or, you know.
Right.
Teaching during like 9/11 and stuff was difficult, and learned a lot from that, like trying to, especially that day, trying to get them distracted, you know. It was, I think about that, and I think that's an experience thing, but I know I bother really strict teachers because my lines are not perfect, my room is not quiet.
Yeah.
And I used to be bothered by that, but then I thought they're engaged. Like I said, they're talking about what we're doing, and
you'd rather have that than
and then finally you have people coming out talking about that being good, and I'm all see.
Yeah.
I think it's a teacher, a personality thing. But I've bothered a lot of very strict teachers over the years because,
but it's worth it because
it is. Because we love each other, you know. I tell them I love them, and it's you know.
It's really
I think
cool.
Teachers should feel that way about their students, but they should. There's so much more to teaching than just, you know. But if you get this, you can get them here. You can get them there.
What is that? What is that?
Just
what teachers get to get there.
Just that nurturing, caring about how they're feeling, not you know. This bothers teachers too. I do this too. I'm not the biggest. I mean, I'm firm and a disciplinarian when I need to be. And there's some kids that just made a mistake. And to see a kid just fall to pieces and just, you know, blah, like, you know, and just explain, you know, I do the same. I do stuff all the time. You know, just talking to them about, you know, and just not falling apart and just giving chances. You know, everybody, you know, it's a speed bump. It's not a wall. Speed bump. Let's go over it. You know,
right.
I think that makes a big difference. It's very Peevis, I know, it's poor Peevis, but just giving kids someone to trust. You know, I need you guys to tell me. I need you guys, you know, understand that, you know, I'm not judging. I need to understand what's going on, or you know. And I think I learned on Zoom with all the parents with Parent Square. That was the closest I'd ever been with a whole class of parents. Was over that Zoom time because the communication was constant. I know it drove some crazy, but some of them needed the help. Yeah. And then I, being a social person, enjoyed that so much more, knowing my parents. So I even try to be that way with my parents. I try to reach out, or if something's funny, I make sure I tell them, and I try to, you know, What
did that look like this year, since we weren't doing distance learning?
With parents?
Yeah.
I did a lot better than I've ever done, just because from distance learning, I learned how to be more just on the horn with parents. I think Parent Squares opened up a lot to, it's easier than trying to call and track people down.
Yes.
Because where I'm from, parents wouldn't answer a lot of the time. So then you, like, what do you do? You know,
Yep, that's it.
Just a lot. I think I did a lot better than I normally did, just because you just didn't do it that way back then. You just weren't on the phone all the time with people. But I think Parent Square has opened it up a lot.
Yeah.
It's nice that a parent can reach right to you, you know, right away. Has been nice.
Yeah. Cool.
And I think it makes them feel better knowing they have a direct line to me. But then I usually give them my cell phone. I usually because I think if I have your child most of the day, as a mom, you definitely want to be able to reach that person. And so I did give my number out during Zoom, and I did get text messages all night.
Oh, really?
But I had a lot of frustrated, scared parents, and so I had to step back and understand that. And once again, a lot of teachers criticized me for it. But, you know, I had one mom up at 10:30 because her computer didn't work. Just freaking out because she had to leave in the morning, couldn't help it, and I'm just like, it's okay. I think just being human with them and the parents and making that, it's a total, to me, but I'm like that. If you know me, you know just about everything about me. I'm very, social and open and talkative, and I know that, but I catch a lot of flap over it with other educators because they're like, turn it off at 3, and I'm like, yeah, but they don't get off work till 5, and so they don't get home and they don't know until 5. So what if they need help at 5? That's just how I am. I don't judge people that aren't, but I think that builds a relationship where they know that it's safer. That I don't know. It makes them feel better. I think.
Yeah.
Or if they're upset or frustrated,
Well, I want to respect your time.
You're good.
Is there anything else that you want to say about student engagement, the challenges or the dreams, or anything else?
Oh. It's more of a personal, I feel like I can improve. Well, I'm just learning the grade level. So, I have experience, lots of experience on both sides of it, and I draw on that. But I just diving in and just getting those lessons. And now, after a year under the belt with a new type of school, totally different than where I'm from, and I kind of feel like I have not worry about all the other stuff, but now I can dive into the curriculum and really make it more engaging and fun. And I say fun all the time. I know.
Right.
I think I did that in an interview once.
So what's that going to look like?
Really fun.
How are you going to kind of approach this now that you have kind of the lessons all set out and you can kind of, iterate and adjust?
Just
and
setting up
improve?
the base, just getting your class environment and climate down so you that was hard last year. But we made it work.
Because it was a new grade level?
No, we had some kids that made it hard, and we...
Right, yes.
But we still did it.
It was still happening.
They were upset when that student was gone, which you wouldn't expect.
Right, yes.
And so I felt like I did something right. I was like, they were upset,
Yeah.
It was like... And they were asking, and so that made me feel like, okay, we did something right. We did, but we still were all a team, but I think building that up makes the lessons easier. It makes the respect and the learning come because your kids are.
So what's the most important thing that you did to build that culture?
I think just spending time talking and learning about each other and letting them work together.
Yep.
They really appreciate it. They act like they don't like it when you put them in groups. Or, when you make the groups.
Yeah.
So I don't always make the groups.
You let them
and I'm
choose
very
sometimes.
careful when I do make the groups about making sure that I'm putting kids that I know will be accepting of another kid. You have to be very careful of that. It's not just like tough, figure it out. I'm not like that.
Yeah.
I would have had a hard time with that as a kid. So I think honestly, I think a lot of my stuff comes from things that when I was a kid that I found hurtful or scary or forced to do that. I just it made me not learn it well. Like I said, if I would have had a teacher that was sat down with manipulatives or drawn things out, like word problems are really hard for me. But when I started drawing the story out,
you got it.
Yeah, it was weird. All of a sudden, I clicked. The teachers back when I was a kid, they taught it, and that's it. Here it is, and I didn't catch that.
Yeah.
So I fell into the I hate math, I don't like math world. totally loved logic puzzles, totally loved math things, but
maybe just not the way it was taught.
right. And so being
kind of
really
ahead
aware
to
of that.
the abstract instead of
Right, all the different ways you can show somebody. And like I said, when all those aren't working, send them on to somebody else to ask.
Yeah.
Really. Or even another student. But yeah, I mean, that's something I realized as I was moving along and teaching, not to do those things, not to teach it this way, that's the only way, and that's it.
right.
You know, now it's, show me how you got the answer. If you can show me how you got the answer, and it works, good. But being open to that stuff.
Right.
I think there's a lot of people out there that aren't open to minds that work other ways, I guess.
Cool, Julie. Well,
So-
thank you so much. Man, this is so helpful. You have
Is it?
such a
Fun?
depth of expertise on
I don't
hands-on student engagement. This is great.
Yeah, I hope I helped.
Yeah,
I know
you-
I say fun a lot.
You have,
I've
you
been
really
made
helped.
better for that.
This has been
Yeah.
a lot of fun.
It's been fun because I like to have fun. It's fun. Everything's fun. I said that in an interview one time, like over and over and over. I'm like, it's fun. Is it fun? Yeah. No, but it needs to be fun. It needs to be a light-hearted. And then when it's something needs to be serious or taken care of, they know and they understand.
Right. That hopefully isn't the norm.
No, and when you get kids, they get that.
Yeah.
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 So,
Cool.
yeah.
All right.